Hello everyone, welcome back to another video where today I want to break down everything we've gotten recently in the last couple of days for Doctor Who Series 2. There's a new teaser I want to talk about, we've got a synopsis by the official Doctor Who account, as well as a brand new tease from Doctor Who Unleashed. But before we get into any of that, do me a teeny tiny little favour and click that subscribe button. We're currently on 25,053 subscribers and I'd love to get to 25,100, maybe by the end of the day or by tomorrow. Now, full disclosure, unlike previous trailers I've reacted to on this channel, I have seen this before. So I'm going to do a breakdown analysis of this. We open on reality seeming to warp around the Doctor here. If I pause it here, it seems to be that like things are changing and morphing around him, judging by the camera. And the lighting is changing, so maybe something's controlling the TARDIS or controlling reality in some sort of way. Nothing else I can really say on that. We also get a look at one of his new costumes here, which we also see in the promo material. Now this shot is very interesting because it looks like a very, very old school alien planet, very kind of Hitchhiker's Guide-esque. But a lot of people, and I completely get where it's coming from, say that this looks a hell of a lot like a new version of Skaro. And honestly, potentially, I'm not going to say it definitively is, because it does look quite different from the Skaro we've seen in New Who before this point. However, if this is a new design for Skaro, and they did say in Doctor Who magazine, I think they wanted to redesign the Daleks, this would be fantastic. I mean, it looks visually breathtaking once again. I say it about all these new episodes, but they do look visually fantastic. I don't think that can really be denied. And this is just yet another example of that. Something I really like about this trailer, and it's something that I've really been hoping for with season 1, following season 1 and Joy to the World and stuff. This looks a lot more sci-fi and kind of abstract in a way that I like. More traditional almost, judging by the trailer, which I like, because season 1 was very experimental, and I liked that it was experimental, but I almost think that sometimes I wanted like a normal Doctor Who episode, you know what I mean, that wasn't like singing, or wasn't like Gat was not there, or, do you know what I mean? I wanted like good old Doctor Who, and this looks more in that vein, at least so far. New shot of Verada Sifu and Mrs. Flood appearing in some sort of theatre, looking down at either a screen or a bunch of performers. I think this confirms, I mean, we've already seen her in the 50s in filming, but I think this confirms that Mrs. Flood is a time traveller of some variety. Whether that's a hint towards her identity, potentially the Rani, I kind of hope not. I kind of hope she's something a bit more, you know, important than that, but I could see it being the Rani, I admit. And then we get a shot of these alien sort of robots, which I believe we saw filming. I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe this is episode 1 of season 2. And once again, do you see what I mean? These robots look very traditional, kind of like, they almost remind me of Fallout in a way. And they remind me of Sarah Jane Adventures as well, with those big red and yellow robots, if you remember that. It looks a lot more traditionally Doctor Who-y, and maybe that's just the trailer making it feel like that, but I almost think that this is kind of what we needed after season 1 went a lot more kind of fairy tale and a lot more kind of like lax in terms of like the rules and the logic of it and stuff. We got them jumping out of some sort of plane, but then it seems to be there's a bunch of them landing there, so maybe this is some kind of like undersea mission. Yeah, it looks like they're under the sea there. Is it under the sea? I think so. Either that or they're like under just a bunch of stars. It's hard to make out. Were they diving from like the sky into the sea, or were they just driving onto the ground? That's Gatwa and that's Verada. So they've jumped out of some kind of like helicarrier type thing, and they look like they're heading to the ground. But then again, given that this is a trailer, these could be 2 separate shots. That's also very possible. So she says, you need to get me home. So it looks like we might be looking at a potential Tegan Javanka type of situation here, where she doesn't really want to be a TARDIS inhabitant. She kind of just ends up as one. I wonder how they're going to address her being identical to Monday Flynn in the previous series. Whether it's going to be like a Peter Capaldi situation, or whether it's going to be a Karen Gillan situation where they just sort of don't mention it. I don't know, but I'll be interested to see how that's handled, but I think they probably will make some reference of it, given it's the same era. A new look at Ncuti there. I'm going to assume, judging by the clothes, this is when they're in the 50s, although having said that, she looks like she's in relatively like contemporary modern clothes, so maybe not. So new shots of Unit here, but with a new inhabitant being Ruby Sunday. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of like the companion to Unit pipeline. I feel like it kind of makes them all feel a bit less unique in a way. Like I feel like there'd be some companions that just wouldn't want to join Unit, you know? They'd feel like, you know, it wasn't their way of doing things. Like how Sarah Jane, in Sarah Jane Adventures, she was very anti-gun and very anti that approach. She didn't like Unit, she didn't like Torchwood, she did her own thing. And I kind of feel like by making all of the companions sort of just have their retirement at Unit, I don't know, I feel like it takes some of the uniqueness out of the companion journey post-Doctor. But that's, you know, maybe that'll be explored a bit in season 2, who knows. But I'm very excited because Ruth Madeley, Shirley Ann Bingham, one of my favourite additions to the new Unit crew, is back. Don't get me wrong, I liked Morris fine, but I vastly prefer Shirley, so I'm glad she's back. So the line he says is, "But the games are deadly," and then it shows this shot, which the entirety of Twitter has been basically just blowing up with how good this looks, and I wholeheartedly agree. I said in my initial reaction to Joyce of the World that this looked like an old school like Cuphead kind of style animation, a bit like maybe like a Fleischer cartoon. My prediction for this is that this is another god, and it does connect to the 1950s episode that we've seen filming, but that this is basically a god of film. And what we're essentially going to see, and again I'm just spitballing here, is this sort of character taking a bunch of different forms on the screen. And maybe that's how they'll incorporate some music into it. Because we do know that there's going to be some music in the next series. But I think it would be good if rather than like in sort of Devil's Call, where they all just kind of start singing randomly, if it was the case that like they were taking some direct inspiration from like the old school Disney cartoons that would have like whistling and singing in them. And basically that's why people start singing. It's not like a big musical number dance sequence, but more like a kind of homage to, things like Steamboat Willie. Those early animations that were basically revolving around, look, we can get these characters to speak. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah, this looks absolutely fantastic. No notes. Love this. I don't know what's going on here. He seems to be falling out of some sort of building, and we get another shot of his costume here from that previous shot, I think, because he's got the same haircut. This, to me, I'm guessing looks vaguely 1970s in nature, judging by the haircuts, general room. Could be wrong, but it looks like they're falling into some kind of vortex there. You can see other sort of bits of debris and maybe another house there. So yeah, I don't know what's going on here. So the Doctor's confused, and then we get a bunch of shots. When trailers do this, it's always hard to like get all of them. We get a nice shot of the TARDIS and then another shot of these guys moving said TARDIS. Verada at like some sort of yellow kind of area. Don't know what that is. Maybe some kind of force field at a guess. I would say regeneration, but I don't think it is. And then the Doctor falling through space. It looks like, are they girders? What are they? Maybe some sort of tunnel? I'm not quite sure what that is. Maybe some sort of zero-gravity spaceship. But to be honest, I really, really like the look of this trailer. There are forces beyond this universe. It's all a game to them. So again, we're kind of going with this whole idea that, like, it's all about the games and it's all about, like, the gods and stuff, which I actually do like, but they seem to have gone in a more science fiction-y direction as opposed to season 1, which I thought was a lot more of a theatrical type of direction for a lot of it. There were exceptions to that, Boom and perhaps 73 Yards, but a lot of it, I think, has that element of very chirpy, very upbeat. This seems a little bit more like things are getting intense, which is what I wanted for a season 2, and I hope that does translate to what we're actually going to be getting, hopefully. We also got this clip on last night's Unleashed, which I just watched, and shout outs to Agnaut for cutting this out so I can show it to you guys. It's just a short clip of the Doctor in a hospital, and we also see Verada's character. So that's the clip, basically. But you also get, what I think is really funny, a little reference here. This woman is the same woman who the Doctor saved from being crushed by a snowman on Christmas Eve with her pram that wasn't a pram with a baby, but instead filled with presents, which is a fun little reference. Also, you can see here another shot of Shoot Easy Yellow Sonic, so I guess that'll probably be the Sonic we get next year. I actually just got the red one for Christmas. So there you go, I got the red one and I got the blue one. So I'm guessing that'll be the next one, I assume. But yeah, here are the promo shots in kind of like better detail here. Very nice stuff. I will say I'm not huge on the Doctor's costume. It's not like, obviously I know it's like kilt and stuff and it's like Scottish, but I just don't think it's overly doctory. That's my one criticism of that. A lot of Shooty's outfits that I really like, but there are some of them where I'm like, I'm not a huge fan. And unfortunately this is one of them, which is a shame because it's the one they're leading the promo with. But hey ho. I much prefer his like one that's sort of similar to this, but it's got the sort of red jumper with the tartan on it. But here is Doctor Who's article on Season 2, everything we know about Doctor Who Season 2. There are forces beyond this universe. As seen in the trailer premiering on Christmas Day, Ncuti Gatwa is back as the Doctor for another exciting season of Doctor Who, meeting new friends, monsters and enemies, and we're breaking down what we know so far. New companion following Ruby Sunday, Millie Gibson's departure at the end of Season 1, and an adventure with Joy, Nicola Coughlan. Again, I don't really think it was an adventure with her, it was just one that she happened to be in, but I'll talk about that more in my video on Joy to the World. At Christmas, the Doctor has found a new travelling companion in Belinda Chandra, played by Verada Sethu. Verada last appeared as Mundy Flynn in Season 1's Boom. Are we witnessing another case of spatial genetic multiplicity, or is it something more sinister? Oh, interesting. There's more to it, maybe. Interesting, because I'm glad that they brought that up in the press release, because that implies that it's on the minds of the people making it, which is good. I don't want it to just be that, like, oh yeah, she's just there because. Like many a companion before her, Belinda doesn't seem to have chosen to take a trip in the TARDIS, asking the Doctor to, quote, get me home, and as is often the case, the Doctor doesn't appear to be in control, telling her that it may be, quote, the long way round, which is a nice little Moffat reference there, which was also in Joy to the World. It certainly seems to be, as Belinda can be seen visiting numerous worlds that don't quite look like Earth. New adventures, anti-gravity explorers, okay, that's what that is, flying saucers, and real-life cartoon characters climbing out of cinema screens. Once again, the Doctor is facing new threats and troubles across new alien worlds, universes, and of course, planet Earth. I like how even they're aware of how much he goes to Earth. And there are more people to save, including terrified cinema goers and people literally clinging for their lives in zero gravity. Okay, that's annoying me. The fact that they put anti-gravity explorers and then put Mavity down here. Either commit to the bit or don't. From space battles to whirring time vortexes, there's a whole universe of trouble out there. Returning enemies, question mark? Mrs. Flood, Anita Dobson, is back as she ditched the snowy outfit and umbrella last seen in Empire of Death for opera glasses, coolly appearing amongst a crowd of panicked people. She seems to have abandoned her fourth wall-breaking ways for the moment, but as we last saw her, warning the audience that the Doctor's story ends in absolute terror. We've got a feeling we'll be seeing more of her this season. I'd hope so. You're the ones making it. The Doctor also makes a reference to games being deadly, having faced off against the Toymaker and the Giggle, and following on from the references to the Pantheon of Gods in the Legendary Sunday, it seems like some ominous phrasing. Yeah, I mean, I am glad that the gods aren't just being dropped. Like, I do think that's a good idea. I just wish that things like Sutekh were executed better, and I wish that they weren't so easily defeatable. But hey-ho, I still think it's a cool idea, even if the execution isn't always there. Luckily, the Doctor has, quote, the biggest family in the universe and plenty of allies to help him combat the forces of darkness. I'm assuming, is that a quote from Sarah Jane in Series 4, or is that a new quote? Season 2 sees the return of Kate Lethbridge-Stewart, Gemma Redgrave, Shirley Ann Bingham, Ruth Madley, and Unit, who appear to have continued their tradition of hiring the Doctor's companions and recruited Ruby Sunday. I really hope, and this is something that I wanted to see from way early on, ever since we saw the Star Beast and we saw that man being bundled away into a truck. I really hope that this season and going forwards we can delve a bit into how Unit kind of seem a bit messed up. Like they've been hiring kids, you know, they've been like shoving journalists into vans. Like, yeah, Kate's nice, but I think it'd be really interesting to have some commentary on how, you know, this military organisation can sometimes be a bit messed up. At least I hope so. Because I don't like the idea of them just sort of being Doctor Who's shield. You know, I want them to be seen as a little bit less trustworthy than that, I suppose. They don't look particularly pleased, though, suggesting the Doctor's enemies might have come to Earth once again. Amidst the excitement for the teaser, the announcement that Rose Eiling-Ellis will be joining the cast has also sparked a lot of buzz amongst fans. It's yet to be revealed who the EastEnders star and winner of 2021 Strictly Come Dancing will be playing, but it's probably okay for the upcoming season to maintain a few mysteries for now. And unfortunately, they've not given us any new info on any sort of release date. I'm still hoping it's earlier than May, given I really don't think the May time slot worked to its benefit. But overall, I've got to say, I really like the look of the teaser. I really like the fact that it looks a bit darker, looks a bit more sci-fi. I really hope that's the direction we're going in. Less joy to the world, more boom, if you catch my drift. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you later.